Okay, I think all systems are up and running. This is VK3SL. This is a test transmission on 160 metres, 2 metres and streaming live on the Broadwave streamer. And we started off with a bit of Pete Seeger there. I think that reflects the my emotional state at the moment with the renovations and new car and everything like that. I feel like I'm in a little box. Hopefully we'll start to find a little bit of creative zeal as the night goes on and find my true self again. It's been mad. Working full-time is not advised. VK3SL, and I think we'll start off with a bit of 20s madness.
That it's party. You don't know what I mean. Sure, we know the word you mean. That's it's party of mine. We know the party. Naughty eyes. Rosy cheeks. Not smarty. Has she got naughty ways? That's it's party of mine. That's party. Has she got? I forgot. That's it's party of mine. You know what? This and that. What a smarty. Has she got everything? Yes, she has got everything. That's it's party of mine.
Okay, and that was Jack Hilton and the orchestra from about 1926-27 with That Certain Party. RF getting into the faders. I'm going to have to get a stack of toroids and see what I can do about that. It's suddenly become a bit of a problem. So the levels may have been down there. I don't think there's enough AGC to quite manage with this one, but that's the way it goes. I'll try the other turntable shortly and see if that's a bit better. But that's something to note for the R&D and repair department. Okay, all right. So, well, this is a real flash in the pan. I've just walked in about 5 minutes ago. And a couple of quick thoughts. Yes, we will have a bit of a Beethoven fest later on, I think. Yeah, I had that in mind today when I was bored out of my brain. At work, I had a bit of a think about what I could do, and had a couple of examples of LVB. Mr. B, the Big B, probably one of the greatest composers, and he is probably got. It's quite interesting to look at his career, his output, his musical output between the beginning and the end of his remarkable life, and just have a bit of a portrayal. All right, we typically start with 20s music, and we'll keep that sort of going for a little bit, and we have one of these remarkable Prozoot transfers coming up now. This is one of several pieces tonight in the minor key. I particularly like pop songs in a minor key, and this is no exception. Sort of in a minor key, it modulates a bit, but yeah, it's a bit of fun. Well, Al Lenz and his orchestra, and the slightly non-politically correct title, but great song. It's called Zulu Whale. Okay, that was Al Lenz and his orchestra. Now, I think his real name is... no, it is Al Lenz. I don't know much about his music or his band, so I'm not going to be any help at all. Sounded pretty good, though. Some hot solos there. Good hot trombone solo. What does it say here? Can't find anything of substance. There we go. We'll let the music speak for itself. This is VK3SL test transmission. This is strictly non-entertainment. It's testing the equipment here and providing an opportunity for people to test their receivers. You can tune in and have a listen and see if you can receive me in the AM mode. AM on 160 metres, that's 1865 kilohertz, and FM on 145.475 megahertz. You can hear me on 2 metres as well. Of course, that's also streaming online. You can find me via my QRZ page, and that would be my recommended way to find a link to the blog page, which in itself has embedded a link to the server, the Broadwave server. So that's the way it works. All right, so what have we had? We've had a couple of 20s offerings. Oh yeah, there's another one on the turntable here. Had a quick scrounge on the shelf. I'm not sure when this was recorded. It's a Paul Whiteman track. I reckon it's from the early 30s, and he's recreating the style of the mid-20s. I think it's a bit of one of those retrospective recordings. I can't seem to find it in any listing. I don't think it's genuinely from the 20s. It sort of sounds slightly glammed up, but it's not that late. It's fairly early. So see what you think of this. It's pretty hot. And it's Whiteman pulling out all stops with a piece called Sensation. So we'll just get the ident going, and we'll have a bit of a go with this. And I'm hoping that we have some resolve to this RF issue. I've got to find some ferrites. This is VK3. Oh, whoops! Don't need to say it, do I? Because I just have to push the green button.
This is VK3SL. Testing on 160 metres, 2 metres, and the Broadway stream.
Okay, it was Sensation Stomp, Paul Whiteman and the orchestra. Now, this is an authentic recording. It's recorded in 1928, so it says in the discography here. So, interesting. It almost sort of sounds like a self-caricature, the way it's played. maybe it's characterizing a particular trad sort of genre. It's certainly very different to the rhapsodic pseudo jazz arrangements that you hear from Whiteman at that time. Now, 28, he moved to Columbia in May 28, I think it was, so it might be just before that time. It's on Victor. So it's got a crack in it, that record, but it's not too problematic. I'll just turn it over and see what's on the other side. I think it's Whiteman Stomp. Yes, it's another stomp. Yes, Whiteman Stomp. It's got a big dig out of it, this one as well. Look, I might as well put it on. I can't recall how this goes. And, of course, this Whiteman Stomp, I think, is I think it's a Fat Swallow tune. May not be. We'll have a listen. Whiteman Stomp. Other side. VK3SL. Okay, Whiteman Stomp. We heard the famous Paul Whiteman Orchestra recorded in 28, apparently. And a bit of a quote from Rhapsody in Blue in the middle of that. And sort of a very much in the traditional jazz style, I suppose you'd call that. Pretty upbeat and frenetic, to say the least. But very clean and crisp. It just doesn't have that raw energy that you hear with some of the black bands at the time. But yeah, anyhow, interesting one. What else? This is a Seat of My Pants test transmission on 160. We'll have a look at the non-existent playlist. Yeah. I was going to play another one of the Whiteman Hi-Fi recordings from that 24,000 series Victor, when he went back to Victor. And the story, which I've told many times, is that one of the Victor studios had the latest Bell Labs set up and was able to record in hi-fi. And of course, something we haven't been able to fully appreciate until recent times, when we can transfer these records and using modern playback equipment. But yeah, well, there's a couple here. Let's have a listen. Let's see what's here. Come on, looking at the list here. Paul Whiteman and his orchestra. Here's a hi-fi recording from November the 25th, 1930. 1932. And we'll hear a recording of Till Tomorrow. So this is a sort of a slower ballady thing, but it's quite well recorded, and nice to hear some hi-fi from the early 30s. Always a good topic for these test transmissions.
For a while we're parted, till tomorrow we still can be bright-hearted, until the world is lighted by the sun's first gleam. Our hearts can be united, dear, in our sweet dream. Till tomorrow, these hours apart aren't wasted. We can borrow some of the joys we've tasted. I'll caress you, praying that God will bless you, till tomorrow, my love. God will bless you till tomorrow, my love.
The dulcet tones of Mr. Fulton, Jack Fulton, I think's on that. Was the vocalist on that? I think. Yeah, and Paul Whiteman's orchestra, Till Tomorrow, and that was recorded in 1932. And an early example of high-fidelity recording. Sounds amazing in here. And hopefully it sounds reasonable on your wireless set. All those people with their AM3s and wideband receivers out there wanting to test them, this is an opportunity. No, we're not really wideband. We're actually we're doing everything very strictly by the rule book here. Excuse me, that was I'll let that one out of the bag. Okay, we'll have a listen now to something similar from the same period. Yes, we'll hear Isham Jones Orchestra, and from the same year, 32, and we'll hear, this is one of Prozoot's actually, but same series, that 24,000 series Victor, and I think this comes from the same studio. Sounds pretty good anyhow. So it's called Everyone Says I Love You, and it's Isham Jones and his orchestra, and I don't know who the vocalist is, doesn't say. I might find out before the track's finished. VK3SL.
corner and the burglar too. The preacher in the pulpit and the man in the pew says, I love you. Everyone, no matter who, the folks over 80 and the kid of 2, the captain and the sailor and the rest of the crew says, I love you. There are only 8 little letters in this phrase you'll find, but they mean a lot more than all the other words combined. Everywhere, the whole world through, the king in the palace and the peasant too, the tiger in the jungle and the monk in the zoo says, I love you.
Hey, what a great arrangement that was. That was Isham Jones and the orchestra with Eddie Stone as the vocalist on that. And I think it's actually from one of the Marx Brothers films. I think it's Horse Feathers. That's right, Horse Feathers. Haven't watched the Marx Brothers for ages. But yeah, that's Everyone Says I Love You, Isham Jones. And you could tell the vocalist was singing into a carbon microphone and the orchestra was being recorded by the latest generation condenser microphones, and they sounded fantastic, and the vocalists sounded like they were in a singing into a comb and tissue paper. It sounded distinctly different. We had that another example of the same issue last week, and of course it wouldn't have meant anything to people listening on a HMV D101 and 1 gramophone. They wouldn't have been able to tell the difference, but now it's all patently obvious. And but look, it's great to hear these, and I'm going to dredge up as many as I can for these test transmissions because they just are fabulous to listen to. They sound brilliant in here. So I'm starting to warm up now. Yes, we'll keep the ball rolling. Now, we've heard the Whiteman, we've heard the Isham Jones, and what else? I've just found, oh yes, now, I did say we're going to have a few more recordings in a minor key, and so I've dug up a record of the quintet of the Hot Club of France with Django Reinhardt and Stefan Grappelli. This is from the late 30s, 1937, and a really catchy number called Minor Swing. And this is VK3SL. It's a test transmission on 160, 2 meters, and the broadwave stream. Ah, yeah, fantastic. That was the Quintet Hot Club of France with Django Reinhardt and Stefan Grappelli and co. And pretty animated version of a piece called Minor Swing. And, yeah, some really inventive melodic work there on the fiddle. It was great. Good to hear the Quintet Hot Club of France. I always enjoy their recordings. Okay, let's have a listen. Oh, yeah. Next thing is another piece in a minor key. Last week I featured a couple of recordings of Connie Boswell and also the Boswell sisters, and we even heard a little bit of a snippet of Connie Boswell talking about her early days and her experience as her background learning the cello. She was a cellist, and her sisters and her were in a piano trio, piano, violin and cello, and were actually classically trained, and then branched off and realising they all had extremely similar voices and had perfect pitch. There's almost an unbelievable synergy in with the Boswell sisters, and I don't think they've ever been equalled, really. They are totally extraordinary, and they made quite a few recordings in the late 20s, early 30s, and then two of the sisters partnered off and got married and sort of left the business. Connie Boswell moved on to a solo career and made lots of recordings right up until the 60s. So we'll hear a few, I think. We'll hear some, start off, we'll hear the Boswell sisters, the three girls, and a fantastic track. It shows them in their full capacity, both in terms of inventiveness in the arrangement and remarkable matching of vocal styles and chemistry, I suppose. It's pretty incredible. So see what you think of it. This is the Boswell sisters from, about 1931, I think. It took a while to find a copy of this which wasn't over-processed, but this one sounds really good. And this is one of the pieces that many, many years ago, my partner Kate, actually arranged for a choir. And I remember her sitting down listening to this thousands of times over, and she annotated the three parts and made it into a sort of a full-blown arrangement. Now, I was wanting to find that. They made a recording, the choir did, back in 1990 or something, and they... I was looking for it today because it would have been fun to sort of back-to-back it with the original. And it is there somewhere, but I was going through boxes of cassettes before and I haven't found it yet. But when we do find it, we'll feature this again in a different guise. But let's have a listen to the Boswell sisters. Roll on, Mississippi, roll on.
Hear that whistle, there goes the bell, that means we're on our way. All aboard, boy, I'm feeling swell, this is my happy day. Paddle wheel, you're mighty, mighty slow, that's why I keep on shouting, let her go. Roll on, you Mississippi, roll on. Come on, you lazy steamer, quit your stalling and move along. River, river, here we come. Watch her smoke, boy, hear that engine humming, Molly. Take a look at that shore with the folks I adore. There's a spot round that bend, that's my home, my journey's end. Come on, you old man river, come on, roll on, you Mississippi, roll, New Orleans, hello, bye-bye, New Orleans, getting on, going strong, Baton Rouge, hold on. Say, Captain, tell me what's the next big town we'll see. roll on. Come on, you lazy steamer, move on. Dum ba dum da dum da dum da dum da dum da dum. Clear that river, here we come. Watch her smoke, boy, hear that hum. Dum da 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 dum. Ba da 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 dum ba da 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 dum. There's a spot round the bend. That's my home, my journey's end. Here we come. Doggone you, old man river, come on. Move on, you lazy steamer, move on. Roll on, you Mississippi, roll on. You Mississippi, roll on.
Ballarat must be the most popular beer, 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 all asking for it. And there's a reason too. It's the best beer that's brewed.
Absolutely. Ballarat Bertie. We can't, Ballarat Beer and Ballarat Bertie have to get a Guernsey on this program. I found a whole heap of Ballarat Beer advertisements on an acetate, as you can hear. Might try another one. Here we go. Here's another one.
No other beer is just as good as Ballarat. Everyone knows that. Do you? A bottle of Ballarat. That's the answer to what's yours.
One more.
Beer, if it's Ballarat, is the best you can buy. Always say a bottle of Ballarat bitter, and you know you'll get the best.
Okay, these Centre Start records. And there we have it, something from the archives there with Ballarat Bertie. Let's see. That we just heard Boswell's Sisters, of course, before with Roll On Mississippi, Roll On. And let's see what else we've got on the Boswell collection. Oh, yeah, I was going to play this last week, but I'll play it now instead. This is Connie Boswell singing Blue Moon, recorded 1935. And it's quite a beautiful rendition. She's got such consummate musicianship. She's a wonderful musician. And I think it was Ella Fitzgerald who said she owed everything to Connie Boswell. She must have listened to all those early recordings when she was young. And there is a similarity. I mean, Connie Boswell hasn't got that wonderful improvisatory zeal that Ella Fitzgerald has, but there's a certain sort of centeredness in the tone and you know, excellent pitch. Yeah, let's have a listen. Connie Boswell, Blue Moon from 1935, VK3SL.
You saw me standing alone without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. Blue moon, you knew just what I was there for. You heard me sing a prayer for someone I really could care for. And then there suddenly appeared before me the only one my arms will ever hold. I heard somebody whisper, please adore me. When I looked, the moon had turned to gold. Moon, now I'm no longer alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. Blue moon, you saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. Blue moon, you knew just what I was there for. You heard me sing a prayer for someone I really could care for. And then there suddenly appeared before me the only one my arms will ever hold. I heard somebody whisper, please adore me. And when I looked, the moon had turned to gold. Blue. Now I'm no longer alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own.
And we heard Connie Boswell singing Blue Moon in 1935. And yeah, such a great musician. It's beautiful, beautiful centered tone. And lovely sense of line. I love the way she phrases. She's very broad phrasing. You can tell she's a classical musician. Comes through. I think she must have had an imagination for drawing that bow across the string when she played the cello, maybe. That's a very prejudiced remark. All right, we'll hear another one of hers. We'll hear one from her later years. She was recording right up until the 60s. She died in the mid-60s, I think. And we'll hear one from 1958. And another ballad. I quite like hearing her sing ballads. There's some great jazz standards with Connie Boswell too, and we'll probably feature others on the on these test transmissions. She's certainly a favourite singer of mine. So we'll have a listen now to a piece called Maybe, recorded in 1958 in complete high fidelity. So you'll hear her voice with all of its true colours, I suppose. So, and absolutely no deterioration at all, despite the fact that she's a couple of decades older than she was on that last recording. This is VK3SL. This is a test transmission, and on 160 metres, 2 metres, and also streaming on the Broadwave streaming service. So you're allowed to be entertained, by the way, if you listen on the streaming service, but strictly no entertainment allowed. It's all about testing equipment, and an opportunity for people to test their receivers. That's the way it goes. VK3SL.
Maybe it's because I love you too much. Maybe that is why you love me so little. Maybe when I answered yes, maybe I became a boy. Maybe if I loved you less, maybe you would love me more. Oh, maybe it's because I've kissed you too much. Maybe that is why my kiss means so little. Maybe with a love so great and a love so small, maybe I'll be left with no love at all. Maybe when I answered yes, maybe if I loved you less, honey, maybe you would love me more. Now maybe it's because I've kissed you too much. And maybe that is why my kiss means so little. Maybe with a love so great and a love so small, maybe I'll be left with no love at all.
Okay, it was Connie Boswell singing Maybe, and that was recorded in 1958, one of her later recordings. And I'm going to sort of look into those more. I know she made a few albums, and she made a very famous recording of that jazz standard, When My Sweetie Walks Down the Street. I've known that for a while, and that's probably one I'll put on a future playlist. And it's recorded with a jazz band. I can't remember which band it is, but it's sort of very trad jazzish. And there's several others too, so we'll have to examine them more closely, and I'm keen to expand my understanding of my familiarity with Connie Boswell's output. And only if they'd recorded the trio with that fidelity, it would have been very interesting to hear the way that they match their sound. It's almost miraculous when you listen to those early recordings, how together they sound. They really just sound like the same voice in chorus, like a chorus effect. So, yeah, that's a theme I'd like to pursue. All right, we move on. And we've been playing lately a series of Graham Kennedy's program on what station was it? 3XY? No, 3... Oh, I know. Anyhow, it's not 3UZ. It was originally 3UZ. Is it 3XY? Someone will know. Anyhow, these recordings were made at his home studio, and this particular one features a sort of a retrospective session with Nancy Lee, and remembering Nicky Witter, and the 3UZ connection. And it's quite pensive and reflective, and it's a long interview. Goes for about 2 hours, so we'll listen to the last instalment of it, which the last 20 minutes or so. We've been playing this over a number of weeks, and we'll hear Mr. Kennedy and co. So without any further ado, I'll just fade this one in. I think it's going to be a little bit more friendly if I fade it in. And this is VK3SL testing.
Hot, sharp, confidentially. This evening, take a tip from me. Just talk my ukulele talk, and your baby will fall, your baby will fall. Say, skin-a-rank-a-dang, skin-a-rank-a-dang. Say, yes, skin-a-rank-a-dang, skin-a-rank-a-dang. That's all.
Skinnamarink-a-dank, that's ukulele talk, and Pearl Bailey did it.
I loved it.
Did you love it?
Love it.
The next track is There's Nothing Like a Dame, because I know that's one of your favourites, and it certainly was one of Nick's.
Yes, indeed, it's one of my favourites.
You saw South Pacific, didn't you?
I saw, Mike used to call it South Pacific when he was 2, South Pacific. And don't you remember how I came to see South Pacific?
You'll have to refresh my memory.
Oh, boy. Well,
is it something awful about me?
A certain young man and another lad I knew invited me out one night when Nick was abroad, when he was overseas.
Oh, yes.
And they invited me to have dinner in town. They thought, poor old lonely old Nancy out there all by herself at Ivanhoe, we'll cheer her up. So I got dressed up in my very best and went in, met them, and we went to a place where you go downstairs. You know, you wouldn't put your big toe in it now.
Who was paying?
Well, you were supposed to be. You boys were supposed to be paying. You were taking me out.
I
remember?
think I know who the other gentleman was too.
Yes.
Might have been the lonely policeman.
Yes, it was my lonely policeman. Yes, and we were going to South Pacific afterwards. You see. We were sitting there having dinner, not much of a dinner, I must admit, because everyone was poor. I mean, you and the lonely policeman were pretty poor in those days. And then all of a sudden, you must have had this arranged between you, because you started to fish in your pocket, you know, pull out things. And you said, oh, isn't that awful? I've come without any money. My lonely policeman said, oh, well, that's funny. So I thought you'd have the money.
Don't tell me.
And you had me on. You had me absolutely believing.
It was a gag?
Yes.
Oh, thank heavens for
You
that.
had me believing that you couldn't pay for the meal, and I hadn't brought any money.
Oh, I was petrified for a minute.
And then we went to see South Pacific, and we sat near the front row, and you each held hands with me, and it was wonderful, and I was thrilled. And then when it was over, we couldn't afford fares down. You only had about 10 shillings to put me in a taxi to send me home. So we walked down to Flinders Street Station from Her Majesty's Theatre.
That's quite a hike.
Singing the score at the tops of our voices.
Oh, really?
Arm in arm, linked arm in arm. Wonderful night.
Well, now, I had forgotten that, but I do remember Mary LaRoche, who was playing Nellie Forbush in South Pacific, and I forget the gentleman's name now, the lead man.
Yes,
but I know we worked with Mary. We did a Coles promotion with her, and I think around about this time we might have been doing the Downy Flake show too.
Probably, yes. I still have the photos of you and Graham, you and Nick with Mary Rage.
Really?
Yes, but let's hear the song, shall we?
All right. There is nothing like a dame from South Pacific. The shop for floor coverings is Malcolm Reed's of Burke Street, Melbourne's largest furniture retailer. Malcolm Reed's have 5 vast floors, just full of the best quality furnishings, hundreds of lounge, dining and bedroom suites. And as for floor coverings of exceptional quality, a quotation on any room design or the plan of an entire home is readily available. For all your home furnishing needs, make just one call to Malcolm Reed's 151 Burke Street, Melbourne, just above Russell Street. It's 21 minutes to 1. The time's going far too quickly. Radio Rentals make only one promise. They promise you television absolutely free from worry. For a low, reducing rental, you can take your pick from a full range of 25 different models, including luxury consoles and stereo combinations. Everything is included in that low rate. Things like your viewing license, the installation, and of course, completely free service. I think it makes a lot of sense to rent TV instead of buying one. Drop in for a chat at any radio rental showroom. You may have an old TV that gives you nothing but trouble. Trade it in. You'll save even more, because what you get for your trade-in is allowed for the first few weeks or months of rental. So you've really got free TV for a while. Give Radio Rentals a telephone call, 637428. That's the first step to absolutely free, worry-free TV. Cooper Ford is the exciting new place with the exciting new deal on Ford. Over the past 18 months, Cooper Ford sales have rocketed. Just have a look at the Cooper Fords in Frankston. Why? Because Cooper Ford are determined to show you Ford and determined to put more money back in your pocket too. That's the formula for success. Ford, the success car of 1970, Cooper Ford at Frankston. And now there's a model clearance. 143 new Falcons have to go. They must go. Cooper Ford are determined to put you in a Ford and determined to put more money in your pocket. There's a lot of good reason, I think, to go to Cooper Ford at Frankston. They're at 91 Young Street. That's just near the railway station. Mum, it'll be worth the trip to Frankston to talk about your new Ford with Cooper Ford. Learn to drive safely, easily and pleasantly in dual-controlled radio cars and police-licensed instructors with Olympic Driving School. You can have lessons at any time or anywhere to suit yourself in all suburbs, Melbourne to Frankston. 7 days a week too. Olympic Driving School, 586355. There are more cars to choose from, such as the latest Holdens, Falcons, Datsuns, VWs, Corollas, Mini Minors. And they've got 3 automatics, large, medium and small. And you'll find You will find the instructors very patient at Olympic driving school. Listen to the instructors being patient.
You damn great idiot! I told you to put your foot on the clutch, not on the brake, and you went straight through the wall to see you. I'm just sick of you the way you keep carrying on like that.
No, they are really. They're awfully patient. Their professional tuition is based on the world-famous Prang system. Well, it's based on the Hendon system, but no one's ever heard of that. It's based on the Prang system. Phone Olympic Driving School for instant service. Ring 586355. Don't forget that Olympic is Melbourne's biggest and best independent driving school.
Why do so many people choose to rent TV from radio rentals?
I don't know.
Simply because renting TV from radio rentals spells an end to all the worries of television ownership.
He's right, that kid with a high voice. For a start, you know exactly where you stand, because for the one low rental, you get absolutely free service forever. In fact, everything is included: your viewing license, installation, and so on. The lot. Now, this is the part I like. The rentals reduce regularly, and for pensioners, radio rentals give a further reduction, which lowers all the rates further still. Rather go for that. Radio rentals, the number 1 TV renters, 637428. Oh, I think that's enough for a while. I really do. Have you got a recorded you'd like to get rid of, Brian? You haven't. All right. It's 17 minutes to 1. Happening Radio 3XY. And our guest today is the very charming Nancy Lee.
Oh, thank you, Gray.
What's the story about the man who came to your home?
Oh, I'll tell you in a minute.
To install the Venetian.
All that carry on with all the voices a little while ago reminded me of when you used to cross over to Parliament.
Oh, remember that?
Yes. That
Coughing,
was
lots of coughing went on, and you got very close to the microphone as Nick was talking and say, the member for Brighton. And there'd be all this banging and ridiculous talk. Yes, I do remember that.
That was wonderful.
I still want to hear the story about the man that came out for the Venetian blinds.
Oh, who was it you used to have advertised in the session with Venetian blinds?
Grant's Venetian blinds. Jimmy Grant.
Jimmy Grant, that's right. Yes, well, Nick decided to have Venetian blinds installed, and he spoke to Jimmy about it, you see, so he arranged it. Well, I was home this day, and the chap called, a middle-aged man, and he brought in his nails and hammer and the blinds and got to work in the lounge room.
Yeah.
So I had you and Nick on, of course, blaring out. And after a while, he stopped his hammering and turned round to me and said, they're pretty good, those two, aren't they? Very popular. And I said, yes, very proudly. Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. Go on. What do you think, so then he started hammering again, and he said, I believe Nick's going overseas. And I said, yes, on with the work. So a little while afterwards, I said, he wants me to go with him. So the hammer went down, the man turned right round, had a good look at me up and down, you know.
Oh, he doesn't know where he's working, of course.
No. Had a good look at me up and down, turned back, and went on with his hammering. So after a while, just to make conversation, I said, of course I can't go with him because of the children.
By this time, he thinks you're the most awful hussy.
Well, he thought I was a bit of an old hussy, you see. He was a little bit dismayed. If I'd been a snappy blonde, I think he could have understood it.
Oh.
However, he turned round again and he said, you wouldn't be Mrs. Nichols, would you?
You finally admitted it, and he breathed again. Oh,
I said, I thought you knew whose home you were in.
Oh, isn't that
funny,
charming?
wasn't it?
That is funny.
Quite
I
good fun.
like that. This song from Dames at Sea, and I think I've explained several times that that's who Timothy was expecting down today. He was really looking forward to Nancy Hayes.
I'm sorry, too.
Oh, you're quite...
Just look upon me as a mother image.
But this, it's a new song, but it mentions lots of names of famous people that Nicky had a lot of time for. From Dames at Sea. Another show that we were associated with, Nancy, was Kismet, and Nick adored Kismet. He adored the music. he loved it all. And we even popped up in it on the 300th performance.
Yes, I was there, I remember.
Remember the big yell we got when Nick walked on, and then I was in the bath that the Wazir had drowned in, and I came out.
Wonderful reception, wasn't it?
It was a very thrilling moment in my life. Here's a song from Kismet. Talking of the Princess Theatre, next Sunday, the Princess is presenting Sunday Star Night. This is the TV Make It Australian campaign. And you can book at the Princess Theatre. $4.60, $3.60, $1.60. Princess Theatre next Sunday night. You'll see, in alphabetical order, Orson Bean, Barry Crocker, Sue Donovan, Terry Donovan, Chuck Faulkner, Noel Ferrier, Ted Hamilton, Jimmy Hannon, Mary Hardy, Liz Harris, Gerard Kennedy, Graham Kennedy, Elwyn Kurtz, Dawn Lake, Bobby Lim, George Melleby, Bert Newton, Jeff Phillips, Leonard Teal, Stuart Wagstaff, Mike Walsh, Ross D. Wiley, Frank Wilson, Norman Yim, and many, many more. That's next Sunday night at the Princess Theatre. Hey, how about a new Kevin Dennis Holden? And how about getting a lot more for your trade-in, say up to $250 more? Kev works on a pretty small profit. He doesn't make very much on each new Holden he sells. That's why he sells so many of them. For the same reason, that small profit per car, Kev can offer you more for your trade-in. Now, for the next few weeks, if you aren't trading in an old Holden on your new one, you can do even better at Kev's. Go and see him. Get him on that wild, stripy carpet of his, and you'll hear the best trade-in offer in Melbourne. That's right, on any new Holden you care to name. Bring your old car along for one of those brash Kevin Dennis valuations. He sticks by them too. Kevin Dennis at Bridge Road, next to the Richmond Town Hall. 8 minutes to 1. 3XY, Happening Radio, Age Radio. I knew the time would go too quickly. I knew I wouldn't be able to get it all in. I wonder if you'd like... I don't know what you thought of today, but I wonder if you'd like to have Nancy Lee back on the program. It's very simple if you want to. You ring 3XY and tell them that you'd like to have Nancy back with KK. Waltons have your home at heart. Listen and I'll tell you why. Waltons are constantly... We might pay her next time. Waltons are constant... Well, Tim hasn't got his yet.
No chance.
No, he's going to get it after the show. Oh, blimey. I've started something here. Waltons are constantly striving to bring you the best possible merchandise at the lowest possible prickies. Here's
Prices?
Prices. No, let's get that. Tubular pliable vinyl blinds in varying sizes are priced from only $1. Hey, how about that? Completely fadeless and waterproof. They will not mildew. Hoping you are the same. Oh, dear. And they feature Vinlon long-lasting cords. The colour range includes white, gold, green and beige. Waltons have your home at heart, and that's why their prices and terms are tailored to suit you. Visit one of their city or 12 suburban stores today. You'll find that Waltons really are nice people to do business with.
You say you want to paint your house. Problems, time and money, you tell your spouse. Here's the answer right away. Just call, take a holiday. You know the paint's the very best brand. House cleaning, they'll lend a helping hand. You know the work is guaranteed. Master tradesmen only, they do the deed. Take a holiday. Australia's biggest in decoration. So consider our invitation. Just call, take a holiday.
It's great to welcome visitors to your home and watch their envious eyes as they spy something that's new in your house. That's the great advantage of being a Lawford's customer. Lawfords come to your very own home with a home decorator service that's unequaled for constructive advice on any home decorator problems. You won't be inflicted with a colour scheme that doesn't really suit you, and the cost definitely won't be exorbitant. Lawfords take the store to your door. Lawfords. Lawfords, the name that spells out friendly service. And just because they come to your home, you're in no way obligated. In fact, if you get nervous at the last minute, don't even open the door. In fact, to save any embarrassment at all, don't even get in touch with the Lawfords. No, seriously, Mum. Good taste doesn't cost a cent more. Lawfords know this, and that's why they can help you.
Now you can see and taste the difference by Baker Boy.
Baker Boy.
In the see-through pack.
In the see-through pack.
That shows you the bread stays fresh much longer.
I don't know the history of this next one. It's Three Blind Mice, Nancy Lee.
Well, I don't either, because I only discovered it last night for the first time after all these years.
It must have been an insert that we'd recorded for Georgie or something.
I think so. I think you and Nick were... Well, you seem to be doing a Georgie voice, too. And were you playing the piano?
I probably was trying to,
I nearly
after
had
a few lessons from John Pacini.
I nearly had a fit when I heard it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is guaranteed to put radio back 30 years.
Three blind mice, 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 three blind mice. Blind mice. Whoops!
I can't imagine what that was for, but it's an example. We don't have much stuff left.
That was Nico.
It was Nico. It really was. Nancy Lee, it's been a delight having you with us today. Will you, if the listeners want it, will you come down again?
Wouldn't it be terrible if they didn't?
Wouldn't it be awful if there hasn't been even one phone call?
It'd be shocking, wouldn't it?
But you will come down if I ask you, won't you?
Well, I'd love to come. It's been my ambition to come down and visit your home for many years.
It has,
Ray.
hasn't it? We never got together.
Apart from being on the air, but thank you, darling. Thank you for having me down.
That's called a kiss.
And Timmy, I'm sorry I've taken up so much of your time.
It was a pleasure.
And thank you, Brian, and thank you, 3XY, but special thank you to Graham.
And tomorrow we have Frank Rich with us for a few anecdotes, and I hope a lot more impressions of Mo. But right now it's time for Little Cowboys to be rounded up.
Little... This is Age Radio 3XY.
59 degrees, cloudy, a little rain, northeast winds. John Montgomery with the news of the moment. A soldier on leave after 5 months' duty in Vietnam is holding police at bay in his car in Perth. The soldier, aged 32, married with 2 children, is armed with plastic explosives and has been holding police at bay for the past 5 hours. The chief of Perth CIB is at the scene and has tried to disarm the man. The soldier so far has refused to leave his car unless he can speak with a man whom he believes has been meeting his wife. However, he has sworn to kill the man if he meets him. 3XY Sport. Gretel 2 skipper Jim Hardy says he's very proud to have equalled the record of Gretel 1 by winning an America's Cup race. Gretel 1 took out a race in the 1962 Challenge, but the American boat went on to win the series 4-1. Hardy answered yes today when asked if he thought Gretel 2 could win 3 more races in the Cup. Hardy publicly congratulated the...
Okay, that was a news from North Vietnam, and some interesting, sophisticated radio from Graham Kennedy and co. From that was indeed 3XY, and we heard Nancy Lee, and she passed away in 1995, I'm told. Now that came from the archive of Mr. Alex Hare, and I thank Alex for that. It's a pity that his great resources now lost to us because his YouTube channel was pulled, unfortunately. So yeah, it's all back in the ether again, so we'll have to wait for it to emerge somewhere else and then really get on the case and download interesting material when it surfaces. I only downloaded a few things, including that, but quite special to hear Graham Kennedy, Mr. Gay himself, and in fine form. Okay, so yes, I'll have to find something else for next week. I might have to get the shovel out and find something here. I've just been wanting a bit of toroid around the turntable input here. Let's see if it makes any difference. I'll just try something here. Oh no, I don't think it will. Give it a try. Might listen to another one of those Ballarat Bertie recordings. Let's see what happens.
You'll be all the better for beer if you make sure it's Ballarat bitter. Get a bottle of Ballarat. You will find it the best beer you have ever tasted. Those few notes mean that Ballarat has a message for you. Here's the message. There are beers and beers. All good too. But a bottle of Ballarat bitter is the best beer you can buy. You can buy. You can buy.
I think there's one more.
You can buy. You can buy. You can buy.
It's the anti-skate that's the problem.
After all I've had to say about it, you bring your bottles of Ballarat regularly. Bright thought for today is this. The world without beer is bad enough. But without Ballarat, impossible. Order your bottles of Ballarat bitter before you forget.
Okay. Whoa. I had to keep my finger on the pickup there. So yes, there's a few more where that came from. So maybe I can cobble something together for future tests. Okay. Well, gear change time, and usually as to sort of signify the change of material, we have a little pianola offering. So I'm going to waltz over to the pianola, and what have I got? Yes, this is a foxtrot, and it's Woody Woodpecker. Now, I think it's another four-hand arrangement, but sounds pretty loud and kitschy, so put your earbuds in and we'll have a listen. I have to switch on the other microphone and we'll give this a burl. VK3SL testing. There we go. One memento. Okay, here we are. I'm going to jump over the hurdle seat here and we'll have a listen to Woody Woodpecker. Woody Woodpecker. Now I've got to climb back over the chair here. And we'll segue into something else. Let me change microphones. Okay, back on the SM58. I've got a couple of choices here. I could go on the SM58 or I could try the... we might be able to get some feedback on this. Let's see how it works on the... I'm now on the... what is it? The Rode something. It's a Rode condenser mic. So that might sound a little smoother to people who are living close by, who are listening in the suburbs immediate to me, but probably doesn't have quite the punch of the other microphone. So there we go. That's the Rode M2 or whatever it is. I don't know. Right, we'll go back to the SM58 VK3SL. Swapping microphones back to the SM58. Yes, probably does have a bit more punch. Certainly needs a lot more gain. Let me see. There we go. All right, what's next? I think it might be nice to have a bit of a something 78. Why not play another 78? So I think I play too much off YouTube. It's much better to play the real thing. What have I got here in this pile? Yes, one of my favourite cellists. Here it is. This is Gaspar Casado, a Spanish cellist. He was a protege of Casals, actually. He was Casals' first student. They had a terrible falling out, unfortunately. And sort of Casals undermined Casado's career. It's a very complicated story, but in the early days, Casado made a lot of recordings, and they are superb. So we'll go back to 1930, and we'll have a listen to Serenata Neapolitana. That sounds like a flavour of ice cream, doesn't it? We'll have a listen anyhow to this beautiful performance, and I'll see what else we can follow on with. Mr. Casado. Nobilmente. That was a beautiful performance of the Apollinata Serenata Ice Cream Flavata, played by Mr. Casado, recorded in 1930, I think, 29 or 30, and it's great to hear playing like that. It's a very different style of playing than the hyper intensity you hear from artists today. It's a very sort of relaxed, more, I don't know, different approach to tone production. Back then, they just let the sound breathe. It's quite beautiful. He has to be one of my favourite cellists, and we'll have to have more Casado. All right, that ushers in the last section of the program. So tonight I'm looking at a classical selection and featuring the music of Mr. LVB, Mr. Beethoven. Of course, the symphonies are well documented, and everyone, probably the most listened to works of Beethoven are his piano sonatas and his symphonies. He wrote a lot of instrumental music as well, and I thought I'd just play something from his very early period and also a middle period work and something very late. So we'll sort of hear the Beethoven's music in its development, I suppose. So Beethoven, of course, learnt from Papa Haydn, Mr. Haydn Seek, and he was a student of Haydn's in the 1790s, and not long after he wrote a couple of very florid cello sonatas, and played both of these in the past, and I love them. They're beautiful to play, lovely to play, more sort of written for piano with cello obbligato. But very early works, very inspired by the classicists Haydn and Mozart. But shows Beethoven's wonderful flair for melodic writing and sort of folksy elements. This one. So I thought I would play the last movement, the last allegro in the very first cello sonata in F major. This is Opus 5, and it was written in 1796, I think. Anyhow, this is a recording of Paul Tittelia and Eric Heidsieck, and we'll get the flavour of early Beethoven, and it's so different to the Beethoven we hear later on, and it's quite striking to sort of hear these things in close succession. So, see what you think. Quite a special piece, actually, and I can think every note as I hear it. I'm actually playing it in my head. I'd love to play it again, perform it again one day. Anyhow, let's have a listen. Hey, that was the very first cello sonata by Beethoven and played by Paul Tittelio and Erich Heidsieck on the piano, recorded in the 50s or early 60s, I suppose. And, as an example of Beethoven's early writing, he wrote that in 1796, not long after he was studying with Haydn. And you hear the wonderful exuberance and beautiful melodic sense that Mr. B had. And we're looking at his chamber music output and a bit of a survey of Beethoven's changing style over the decades. And that was our first example. Next one's a string quartet. We're just going to hear the last movement of one of his Razumovsky quartets. This is the second one, number 2. In fact, it's actually quartet number 8 because he wrote a whole stack of them earlier on. But this represents the middle period of Beethoven's writing. He actually, around about the time he wrote the Eroica Symphony, his third symphony, he sort of changed completely in style. He became a lot larger concepts. He started to sort of move away from classical tradition and establish new insights into musical form by just having larger forces, and everything was grander, bigger, more elastic, and started to sort of fundamentally challenge convention by having micro movements. And he actually did a little bit in the early works too. You could hear this that slow section at the end of the cello sonata, but he did that even more with his string quartets and middle period piano sonatas and the Eroica Symphony. It's it's interesting to sort of hear the way he broadened. And he was a maverick, really, because nobody else had anything like that sort of courage, I suppose, to sort of to push boundaries. Yeah, this works fantastic. I sort of this is a little bit of a spontaneous one. Today, I was teaching a group of very young kids. How old were they? They were very young. They were about 8, 7 even. And it was just getting a bit tired at the end of the day. So I dug this one up and put it on, and the kids, the whole room of them, were just totally riveted. And I like getting young kids to draw pictures to music. So they listen to it, and you don't have to get, it gets all a bit complicated if you try and describe things, and it actually puts people off. So with youngsters, you just give them a piece of paper and they can draw anything they like. But look, it was great. The whole class was just totally focused on this performance. And I sort of picked a recording off YouTube with youngish players rather than some particular performance. And this is a group called the Esme Quartet. They're a Korean group, and a group of 4 women, and beautiful, passionate players, and it was recorded only recently at one of some festival. And it's all on YouTube. Just type in Esme Quartet, Beethoven, and you'll find it there. String Quartet number 8 in E minor, Opus 59 is the work. We're going to hear the last movement, just the last movement, and you'll hear that sort of orchestral sense that Beethoven brought to the string quartet. It's larger than life, amazing forces, and he extended the techniques of the instruments so much, and they assumed a whole different character in the way he sort of layered the textures. And the fun one about this is it's got a galloping motive which sort of prevails, and it speaks for itself. It's great music. We'll hear Beethoven's I don't know even what this movement's called. It's Allegro, I suppose. They're all sort of fast movements, or Allegro-ish. And it's the last movement, anyhow, from the second Razumovsky Quartet. And I'm VK3SL, boring the listeners senseless with my diatribe. Let the music speak for itself, please. That was something on stage. They're about to play. Hey, well, how's that for a ride? So we heard then it was Beethoven's String Quartet number 8 in E minor. Now, that's music in a minor key, sounding very well in places very joyous, and but just that galloping motive is really contagious. Fabulous one to watch. They're really animated group. So look up the Esme Quartet. They're just a group of youngsters, playing at a really high level, and it's great to see that and hear it. Of course, it's wonderful stuff. All right, we'll move on, and it's getting late. So the offering of oh, wait a minute, I better get this right. Yes, the offering of Beethoven's later period is actually the Gross Fugue, which he wrote when did he write it? In 1826. So at the very end of his life. This is an interesting story because he was completely deaf at this stage, and he had a sort of staggering personal crises and things that affected his, and mainly to do with his loss of hearing and his anti-social demeanour. The Beethoven tale is pretty full on, actually. But he wrote this piece at the very end, not long before he died, and it was supposed to be the last movement of his 13th quartet in his Opus 130, and the publisher just refused to publish it because he said it was just too way out. It was completely, what do they say? Yeah, it says some of the critics describe it as incomprehensible, like Chinese, and another says it's a confusion of Babel. Yeah, it's music which could only be written by someone who couldn't hear, and he'd been deaf for some time, and so his concepts of what was possible were completely transcended in a sense. So he had this vision of music far beyond the scope of what was conventionally understood. So his vision was of music of high drama and astonishing complexity. So it's almost impossible to play. It's really hard work to play. Not many people tackle it. It just modulates all over the place. It's a double fugue. Usually, and it was actually published as a separate movement. So he got away with it by publishing it as a work unto itself. So he had to write a new movement for the quartet, the last movement, and he wrote actually a really ironic last movement in the place of this fugue. It's an interesting story in itself. But the fugue itself was published separately as Opus 133, and it's astonishing. It's music. It's contemporary music. It's music. What did Stravinsky say? There's a good quote of Mr. Stravinsky here. He says it is an absolute contemporary piece of music that will be contemporary forever. And yeah, it's quite astonishing. So we'll have a listen to it. It goes for a bit, but it's if you can cope with its the angst and the harmonic clashes and everything. I've chosen a recording rather than hear it with a string quartet. I thought it'd be better interesting just to hear a version played by a string orchestra. So I've chosen a historic recording of Furtwängler. This is one of my favourite conductors. I love Furtwängler's interpretations, and he actually was a great Beethoven scholar. So he has very interesting ideas actually with the way he interprets this piece, and I think it works really well. Other recordings of string orchestra transcriptions of this don't work so well, but I think this one's quite amazing. So we'll hear Furtwängler's interpretation of the Grosse Fugue by Beethoven, and this was written in 1826, not long before he died, and its music probably 200 years or if not more, ahead of its time. And it rewrote musical history, to be honest, this piece. It's probably the most important piece in one sense written, but have a listen and see what you think. And I'll let this one ride out, and then I'll have a listen on Channel D. I won't back announce this. There's no point. So, we'll let it go. So I wish the listener a very good week, and we'll catch up next time. This is VK3SL. Clear after we hear the Grosse Fugue by Ludwig van Beethoven.